What is up, you guys? Naesam here, and this is going to be a guide for Cenarius, Heroic, and Mythic, specifically for Elemental Shamans. No in-depth strat guide, mostly just going to be Elemental Shaman talents and whatnot. So without further ado, let's get started. So first things first is the default talent build, which is going to be Totem Mastery, Gust of Wind, Lightning Surge Totem, Ancestral Swiftness, Primal Elementalist, Elemental Mastery, and Lightning Rod. Keep in mind that this is actually probably the only boss where Ancestral Guidance has some use, so if you're consistently dying on Wisp explosions, or Thorns from the Wisps, feel free to switch to Ancestral Guidance. That's mostly for Mythic, but since you're bursting them super hard, then it can actually be very useful. And for Tier 100, if your Mythic strat consists of trying to push to 35% before the third Nightmare, whatever it's called, Nightmare Forces I believe, basically before the Double Sisters spawn, then you may want to go Ascendant. Is probably going to net in more damage when it matters. So before getting into the rest of the tips and stuff, I will briefly go over our Mythic strat for context. So basically we decided against trying to push before Double Sisters. We went with 5 healers, heroed on the pull, 3 tanks. 1 tank takes all of the Drakes to the back of the room, and we ignore them, and just kind of let them deal with it over there with one of the healers and one of the tanks. We tried to push 35% before the 4th Forces of Nightmare, so after Double Sisters, and that's pretty much it, except for we had like clear stuff and everything, but I think that's all this, every strat has that. So here's some tips for the boss. Basically, one thing, if you get brambles on you, you have to make the decision whether you're going to go Ghost Wolf or whether you're going to continue doing your movement rotation like Flame Shock, Earth Shock, Earthquake, whatever else. And the way you should decide this is how many soaks or how many clears you have where the brambles currently are located. If there's already like a big circle of brambles, you can just continue doing your movement rotation, just kind of kite it around the circle. If there's no brambles, you might just want to go Ghost Wolf and just run around in circles and get it as condensed as you possibly can. Make it easier to clear and all that. Another tip is that Gust of Wind does not go over brambles, so don't even try. You'll just get rooted and fall. But it does allow you to clear stacks when going over puddles. Basically the way it works is it pretends it's just dragging you across the ground. In reality, it's like a charge, but without a target. If you mess up and get hit by brambles, avoid using Astral Shift unless you absolutely have to. You want to use Astral Shift for one of the Wisp phases, which I'll explain in a bit. So if you get hit by brambles, basically just want to stop, cast Healing Surge. If your healers request you to call out the spells, then do that. If brambles is actually targeted on you, you definitely want to call it a dispel and get it immediately, so you can run out of it. But try not to use Astral Shift unless you absolutely have to. So on Mythic specifically, after the first use of Stormkeeper, you want to save it exclusively for the Wisps, and the first use is going to be on the pole. So after that, you want to save it for each Forces of Nightmare that brings Wisp, which is the second and the third one. On Heroic, you most likely will not be getting Wisps pretty much ever. So you kind of want to use it on cooldown if your group is struggling with adds, and you can save it for that because it will do a lot of cleave damage. If you can get Lightning Rod up, it'll do a whole lot of single target damage as well as the adds. And another Mythic specific tip is that if you use the Monk statue for the Wisps, you want to avoid using Astral Shift or Healing Tonics for the first set, because the second set is most likely going to have Thorns on them. So if you get a Static Overload proc, you could literally die in one global, so you want to use Astral Shift before you even start casting. So use it and then start casting. Watch your health. You might need to stop casting, heal up a bit. In general, you probably shouldn't have to, because you can just like Healing Tonic or whatever like in between casts, but you definitely want to watch yourself during this if they have Thorns, because you could seriously do some damage to yourself. So this is something that I wouldn't recommend doing unless absolutely needed. But if you really, really need to get to the other side of the room and brambles is like in a big line blocking you, you can avoid taking damage from it by like jumping off towards the water, like over into the water basically, and then Gust of Winding back on at an angle. So you kind of like avoid this like however many yards section of the room that has brambles on it. Hopefully that would, like, you have to be very careful, because if you fall in, then you not only die instantly, but you also cannot onk. And you also make it really hard to res you, because they have to run all the way to the edge. So only do this if it's absolutely necessary, but it is doable to jump off, Gust of Wind back on at a different spot. If you get Scorned Touch during Twisted Sisters phase, which is very likely going to happen, hit up Ghost Wolf, and it pretty much completely gets rid of the movement speed decrease. So using this, you want to get as far away as you can from other players, so they have more room to spread out. Most classes and specs do not have the ability to do this, and most that do have the ability to do this, like druids or whatever, them shape-shifting actually immediately explodes it, so they can't do that, or it'll blow up and hit everyone around them. So we got very lucky on that. We can just Ghost Wolf and Gust of Wind and be on the other side of the room, completely out of harm's way. And lastly, a very common strat on Mythic is to stack the very first Forces of Nightmare, the tree guy, on the boss. If you do this, it is an increase in DPS to use Earthquake instead of Earthshock. Let's put it on the boss and the tree guy. If not, then obviously don't, but most groups would do this on Mythic. On Heroic, usually you don't, because you kill both the ads, but if you do, then definitely use it. So that is about it for Cenarius. There are quite a few tips and quite a few different things you can do. I think I kind of went over everything relevant in this video. If you want the written version, it'll be in the description. And if you manage to kill Cenarius, congratulations, you're basically 7 of 7. Anyways, if you liked the video, give it a like, all that other stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.